Are we good?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
We're on.
Okay, sweet. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Jaden Eric Bodwin. Today we are going to talk about how I record 371 Harmonized Chorales by Johann Sebastian Bach. Let's roll some silly intro. I don't know what it's going to be. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is to get set up for recording. Now, if you come over here, oh shit, I forgot to turn on my screen recorder, so we'll do that. That's okay. So as you can see, the program I use is Reaper. Really great, cheap, inexpensive program. Got all that set up, arm my tracks, make sure my metronome's on. Take my headphones, keep them out of the way, go underneath the collar, and I'll loop through my belt, and I'll attach that to the speaker extension cord. So now that we're ready, we've got our tracks armed, we're going to hit record. I'm going to go in there, turn on some lights, hit record on the camera. In case anybody's wondering here, we are recording with two Rode NT1 microphones. I'll put a link to them down in the description. These are just some generic studio photography soft boxes. There's a bunch of CFL lights inside. Recording on my Canon T6i. That's a crop sensor camera with a 10 to 18 millimeter lens set at 16 millimeters. 10 is way too big, but it's great because sometimes I record full bands in here. I think that's about it for equipment. We're going to start getting into the process of recording this chorale. So I'm going to hit record and away we go. So this is the speaker extension or the headphone extension I mentioned earlier. Plug that in. My click track's good. And now comes the fun part. We messed up, everybody. We forgot to do an important thing. We can hear that click track in the background. Dang, we messed up. What do we do when we mess up? Simple. We just clap. Shows a very clear waveform in both the audio and the video file, and that way it's really easy to sync when we go back up in post. I don't have to go back to the computer to hit stop and go. Same thing with the camera, I can just continue on. It makes it very quick for editing. So we're going to try that again. And that's our bass track. I think I played one wrong note, so we're just going to go back and fix that. We'll just overdub it later. go. We're going to clap twice, because that means it's our second voice, which is the tenor. We're also switching mallets to help differentiate between each voice, so these mallets are slightly harder than the ones we previously used. So this is the tenor line. Beautiful. Clap 3 times for the alto. Claps for the soprano. I thought that was pretty good. And if you couldn't tell yet, everybody, I specifically picked one of the easier chorales, so you wouldn't have to go through me trying to record one that's, a 3-minute chorale. Alright, that concludes our 4 voices. Follow me back to the computer after we hit stop. So we'll come over to the computer, we'll turn our click track back on, but I can shut up. We'll get the cameraman to stand right here, and if you look at some of these waveforms here, you can see where the claps are. It's quite clear. So we just look for instance right here. 3 claps. That means what comes after is the tenor. So we'll find the 2 claps. That means 3 claps would be alto, 2 claps would be tenor. So we can start to move this stuff around, shorten it. We'll fix this up a little bit once we get into it. But for right now, it gets us in the ballpark. And let's see, what was it? I think that was yeah. So get rid of that. Move this over, and let's see how we are. Beauty. Make sure we didn't cut anything off. Perfect. Did you hear the mistake? So we'll just go in. Sometimes I do make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. We'll just... That one's quite off. I'm surprised. Felt a little early. So basically what I'm doing right now, I'm just going through and making sure things are lining up. If I accidentally, didn't play something together, just fixing up a couple of those. Right here, I switched the chord slightly early and it just doesn't gel. That's pretty much it. A couple other things you saw me do, I just trimmed up the beginnings so that they look really nice. And then I also, at the end, just added a nice little roll off towards the end. So let's just hear how that all sounds. Great. And we don't want to hear that sound effect. Perfect. So once that's all done, we're going to save, and we're going to open up our render, and we're just going to do a test render. And I'm just doing this to see what my levels are like, how much to boost those by. Oops. And so we'll go just under what it said, render it again, we'll get 0.1, perfect. That's our wave. We'll do another MP3, takes a little bit longer. And there we go. Save that, and get ready for 161. Boom. So that takes care of the recording and mixing portion. Before we leave that and we go over to the video, I just want to open up some of the effects I'm using so you can see what sort of things I'm doing with the marimba. And I'll open what we just recorded. So I'll open this and I'll just mute the effects and you can hear the difference. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound very enticing to me. This sounds a lot fuller. So the trick for this is I run basically the same effects on every single voice. We'll start off with just basically just rolling off the lows. That's nothing, nothing you haven't seen before. On the bass tracks, I do roll them off a little bit lower, of course, and then there's just a little bit of compression that happens, nothing too fancy. The real beauty, I think, wrong button. The real beauty is I have two different reverbs operating that help to fill out the sound. So the reverb, basically, they're both large room reverbs, however they're set up to slightly different settings, and that should actually be there. You can see those settings there, but one room very large, one room a little bit smaller. Overall, nothing too crazy there. We're just trying to get some length to the room. The EQ on both of these is, again, different. One of them is rolled off. Right there you can see just the lows. Although there is a little bit of a low pass and high pass engaged. This is just to kind of clear anything up. The other one is much more extreme and offers us just reverb for that core of the marimba sound, as well as a little bit of the highs, and that's just to give it some of that brilliance that we need to get filled out because of the room limitations. So that's a little bit about the effects. Every marimba goes into those two main effects that you saw there. There's nothing too crazy about that. There's just a limiter on my master, and that's about it for mixing. It's a pretty simple process. Let's go on to the video. All right, we are continuing on. We are in the next section. It's so exciting. Jazz hands. Let's get started. Enough yammering. Let's open up our video editing program here. And boom. Okay, editing. Got our audio file, got our video file. So first, I'll just drag the audio file down, and then I'll drag the video file down. I kind of zoom out. And if you remember those claps from earlier, I'm basically just looking for those, and I'm just going to trim these videos. As soon as my hands go in the mallet bag, I'm just going to cut it off. I'm going to look over here, find just before I start playing, about there, boom, delete that. Next we can go on to the second voice, the tenor, do the same thing basically. I'm just trying to cut out a lot of the sort of dead space in between so that it'll be a little bit easier to do everything. Oh, and it looks like I might have made a mistake there. So let's just, whoops, do that. And we'll get rid of that mistake. That's how we fix our mistakes. I forgot I made that. Silly me. Maybe I did another one. No. Still playing. Here we go. Got that all good. Alright. Alto voice. Same kind of thing. We're just finding right before we start. Maybe a second or two. Delete that. Go to the end. Put the mallets away. Boom. Clap, 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 clap. Same thing, final voice, get rid of Steve walking in front of my camera. That's okay. Hopefully we can salvage that, that should be fine. Doesn't matter too much. The videos are a lot less important than the music. And boom, we're done. No, we're not done. Now, we're just gonna layer these. 1, 2, 3, 4. And at this point, I like to put the videos into their proper corners. I don't want to get anything too specific yet because I'm going to put a little border around them before I do that. And I just want a 1 pixel border. Just enough so it looks a little bit cleaner. Without the 1 pixel border it just looks a little messy. And 2 and 3 is too many. Nobody's got time for that. Looks like you're trying to compensate or something. So we're almost done here. Here we go. Perfect. Now we're just gonna try and line these up here. Usually, first try. Sometimes it takes a few tries just to make sure it's perfect, but boom, there we go. Now we're gonna zoom in. And I'm going to turn on my speakers because now we have to line up all of the audio and video. For this, I'll usually just shift it over, search for the beginning of the audio where I can see some waveforms, and just drag things over to get me into the ballpark. And we'll fine tune once we're there. Let's see how we're doing. Looks pretty good. So I'm just looking at different voices, making sure that things line up when what my eyes see matches what's going on here. Like, especially with the moving lines. So if you looked in the tenor voice that just had a moving line, and that was okay. Like I said, video doesn't have to be perfect. You can see Steve in the corner there, that's cute. Where is it? Yeah, I think we're pretty good. So, we'll just go back to the beginning here. We're going to make the beginnings of all of these the same. So they all start at the same time, because why wouldn't you do that? And we'll just add a little fade on the beginning of each one. Smooths things out a little bit. Take a look at that. Yeah, checks out. Shove that to the beginning, and we'll do the same thing with the end. And I usually line these up with the one that ends the earliest, so that you don't see me walk off stage or something. It's a stage, it's my basement, but you know, it's a stage. I've used it as a stage before. So, just put those in, check it out. You know, I think actually those could go a tad longer. Let's add just a hair. Change my mind. There we go. Yeah, cool. So, yeah, it looks great. I'm gonna save that, and that's pretty much the process. If I'm really cooking, I can do one of these every 10 minutes or so. It's quite impressive. We'll just hit. We'll change the folder there, and we'll go to Bach chorales. We're gonna name it 160C for complete. Yeah, I'm gonna replace it because I don't know what that is, but I just did it. So, and as you can see, it doesn't take too long to render. I didn't talk too much about some of those video editing things that I do, but there's not really much to it. The videos kind of edit themselves in a way. I just do some bare minimum stuff, line it all up like you saw. But thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Keep watching those Bach chorales. Help me be famous one day. That would be sweet. Take it easy.